Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Republican Study Committee's Elephants in the Room. I'm Rachel Del Giudice, and I'm joined today by Congressman Mike Johnson from the great state of Louisiana. He is also chairman of the Republican Study Committee, and Congressman Jeff Duncan from the great state of South Carolina. Thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. So we want to be talking about the Green New Deal. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's actually holding a rally here in D.C. next week. She's going to be pushing her agenda for that, where there's a lot of talk in Congress about it. What are the most concerning points about that legislation to you, and why is it important to be having this conversation about energy?
It is a very important conversation to be having, and we're actually grateful that she's having a rally because it draws more of the American people's attention to the real issue here. The Green New Deal and the proposal they brought to the House has 100 co-sponsors. It's not something to be taken lightly. When you count members of the Senate and the House who signed on, it's a big swath of the Congress. And this is something that should concern every single American because it will impact their pocketbooks, it will impact their families. It would, in a literal sense, change the very nature of our country. It's a broad swath. A swipe at the U.S. economy and our underlying foundational principles. It is a guise, I think, to usher in the principles of socialism, and we need to recognize this for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it's a redistribution mechanism to redistribute the wealth and power, centralized power at the federal government. And we already know the government's tentacles are in every part of our lives, but the Green New Deal will give the government even longer, broader, stronger tentacles to be so invasive. And that's what big government does, that's what progressives do, and that's what the Green New Deal does.
So you all in the RSC just authored a 13-page takedown of the Green New Deal. Can you kind of go through that takedown and give us a few points of what's included in that?
So the Green New Deal, as it was introduced in Congress, is 14 pages long. Our takedown was 13 pages. We could have elaborated even further because there's so much in this to take issue with. Our staff are some of the best on the Hill. We had members involved in this. And it's a pretty comprehensive I guess, summary of what this Green New Deal would do for the country. So we go through the cost that it would add to the American people. I brought a little graphic. We put out this little document called we call it the Greedy New Steel, right? But just by the numbers, real quick, a couple of top line things here. It would add 300 times more toxic waste from solar farms over nuclear. You know, part of the Green New Deal, the initiative is they want wind and solar. We want to get to zero carbon emissions in 10 years. First of all, it's scientifically impossible to do that.
But wait a minute, the Earth's going to end according to Beto, right. The Earth's going to end in 10 years, according to AOC, in 12 years. That's crazy.
We have a very short time to accomplish this, Jeff. But even if it were possible, the cost would be so enormous that it would literally bankrupt every family in America almost, except the super wealthy, right? A 286% potential increase in the energy bills per household. And we know this would have a disparate impact on low-income households because they already pay more of their share.
That's the biggest issue that they don't want the American people to know is that as a percentage of the income, lower-income people, as energy rates go up, they're paying a higher percentage of their income for their basic electrical needs, and it impacts them the most.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, that the big headline, is that 50% of our economy would pass through the hands of the federal government. Mm-hmm. How frightening is that? It's not even an achievable set of goals, because in order to go to all that wind and solar, Jeff, you would have to take a landmass the size of the state of California in order to put all that apparatus
out there. It's like 115 million acres that it would take,
right.
And
right.
It's just unfathomable. But when you talk about lowering your carbon footprint and meeting our energy needs, even the governor of Connecticut, instead of bringing nuclear reactors offline and decommissioning those, decided to go for relicensing because he knew that they need to meet their electrical needs, and in order to lower his carbon footprint, nuclear power has to be a part of that. So now you see a very liberal governor embracing nuclear power, which has got to be a part of the matrix here. I love wind and solar, Mike, and I think you do too. We
Sure.
also know what works: fossil fuels, hydro, nuclear power to provide that 24/7 baseload power to meet our demands, always on for the manufacturers and for us at home when we want to cut the lights on or read to our children or have a cold beverage out of the refrigerator. And manufacturers like BMW or Boeing, which I visited recently, they need that power to be on when they get ready to make the next Boeing aircraft. So.
We're all the above, folks. We believe in the president's vision for not just energy independence, but energy dominance, as has been our new phraseology and our new goal. But we achieve that, as Jeff's alluded to here, through private sector innovation, not government regulation. It's the regulation of the government that gets in the way of these innovations. And even though our energy use has increased in the United States over the last several years, our carbon emissions have gone down. That's not because of the government's heavy hand.
It's not because we entered into the Paris Climate Accord. It's because you know, we're good stewards of the environment as Americans and innovators, and we see the future. You know, people that are investing in energy, they're investing in wind and solar. They're also investing in conservation efforts. They're encouraging their employees to be more conservation minded. I remember my dad in the 70s during the oil crisis telling us to turn the lights off when we left the room and, you know, walk when we could. Yeah, so Americans are seeing that, and you're seeing the innovators really step up to the plate. And I was down at Clemson University as a leader in looking at our electrical grid and trying to really combat any threats, whether it's an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, or looking at cyber attacks. But they also have what's called a drivetrain facility there. They're testing everything that a wind turbine could be put into, any sort of torque on the blades, longevity, and it's one of only 2 facilities in the nation, one in Colorado and one in Charleston, but it's run by Clemson University in a collaboration with a lot of private sector folks. So you're seeing innovators step up and say, if we're going to use wind power, we need to make sure they're safe. We need to make sure they're efficient. We need to see how they're connected to the grid and understand how that may affect the grid with spikes in power, or if one of these units fail, what does that mean for the power supply? And so you've got innovators out there, both public and private, trying to make everything better.
Speaking of innovation, it seems like this legislation is discouraging it. In the overview for the Green New Deal, there's a line in there that says it's promising economic security for those who are unable or unwilling to work. And how is this harmful to our society, as well as just damaging to the American work ethic?
Well, all the above. I mean, first of all, in order to provide all of these government goodies for everyone who is an able-bodied worker will have to be taxed at a rate that is unsustainable. There's not enough money in the system to be able to do everything they promised, and so in order to mine those resources to give it to someone else, you've got to take it out of the pocket of a hardworking American. So
it's confiscation, is what I call it. That's
confiscatory
really
tax policy.
That's right. That's all taxation is, and confiscate the dollars from the hardworking Americans and give it to folks that you know, some are economically disadvantaged and can't find a job. But look, in a robust economy where we have jobs, for the first time in my lifetime, we have jobs seeking employees versus employees seeking jobs. And so Trump policies, Republican policies with taxes and with energy have actually worked in this economy. And I don't know why the Democrats would want to throw cold water on a robust economy, but you hear the presidential candidates really being anti-economic policies. They're really wanting big government policies, and the Green New Deal is the biggest kraken that we've seen. It's got tentacles throughout all of government. So
well,
it's a great visual for you.
It's a great visual. Among the estimated 10-year cost of the Green New Deal, listen to this, if we were actually going to guarantee a job to every American, even those who don't want it, as they said, it would cost somewhere between $49,000 and $322,000 per household in taxes and this confiscatory tax policy that would take in order to give out that guarantee. Of course, it's an impossible thing to do, and it's not something we should do, because again, it goes to the very core of who we are as Americans. We believe in hard work. That's our work ethic. That's what we're built upon. We believe in the principles of capitalism, because if you work hard and you play by the rules and you're willing to sacrifice, you can make a better life for yourself. That's the essence of what it means to be an American. The Green New Deal is something very, very different than that.
The Green New Deal is a way Democrats can offer free stuff to the voters. But we see when free stuff's offered to people like the Venezuelans, they get free education, free health care, but they can't eat those. They're starving, and they're eating dogs and flamingos and digging through dumpsters for basic substance. And when you offer free things and you're penalizing the hardworking Americans and you're disincentivizing businesses by overtaxation, those businesses quit doing the jobs. The people quit working, and they want their free stuff too. And then you see this downward spiral of the economy, and that's what you're seeing in Venezuela. And socialist policies never work. They never will work What does work is capitalism. What does work is limited government, free markets, individual liberty. And I really think that's what we ought to focus on, is how we empower individual Americans, how we empower small businesses and large businesses in this country. That's capitalism, and that actually works. And it gives America the opportunity through our prosperity to go and help Haiti when they have an earthquake, or go and help in sub-Saharan Africa to raise people out of poverty, and export our technology and our expertise to areas that they need their energy sources. And you know, some renewable energy will help in those areas, but I'll tell you what, when we send LNG to those countries and allow them to have a 24/7 baseload power, then they're keeping babies alive in the incubators. Then they're able to have air conditioning in the home and keep food fresh and refrigeration and cook on things other than charcoal and wood, and their air quality is better. And so there's a lot of things based on energy and American energy dominance can support that actually work to improve the lives of so many people. The Green New Deal will hurt America, hurt American families in their pocketbooks, and it will grow government, ultimately hurt our country.
Congressman Johnson, you have a resolution that's working to dismantle the Green New Deal. Can you tell us about that and how it would work?
Yeah, there's a resolution that we'll be filing here in short order. We'll probably have most of the RSC signed on to that. We have 142 members in the Republican Study Committee, so we're the largest caucus of conservatives in Congress, and that's an important voice to put behind this. While they're having their rallies and trying to drum up support, we'll be pointing to the real facts of this. And this is a resolution we'll file in the House that lays out, basically summarizes in legislative form what our 13-page takedown, as the Washington Times called it, of the Green New Deal does. It points out the cost, the absurd notion that we would have to essentially get rid of all moving vehicles in the country. Anything that is, has any kind of emission at all under this deal would be taken away from the American people.
Yeah, I mean, how's Tulsi Gabbard going to get to Hawaii?
She won't be able to get home.
She can't fly, and trains are probably
no rail service.
There are no more cows, so apparently
No
we're
more
eating
cows.
hot dogs with maggots in them. So
Well, and even we point out in this resolution, for example, even if we were able somehow to confiscate land the size of the state of California to build all these solar wind farms, for example, it takes 800 metric tons of concrete to build
one of the largest emitters of
Yes,
carbon,
right.
That we're trying to lower our footprint
Is
of,
concrete
is
production.
concrete,
Right.
right? Yeah.
So you would add so much in terms of carbon emission just to produce the concrete in order to put the wind panels up, windmills up, and they're not reliable because we can't force the wind to blow, we can't force the sun to shine, and everywhere that they've tried to do this, to go, to rely heavily on these alternative sources, it's been a disaster. They've had scale blackouts, and this is South Australia, some parts of Germany. We just can't go down this road, and I think they're using this, some of these Democrats, some of our colleagues, are using this as a campaign ploy, as Jeff said, to promise things to people so that they'll vote for them. But we have a responsibility to point out the facts, and I think in the Republican Study Committee, at least, the conservatives in Congress are anxious to do that very thing.
And as Mike had said earlier, we're truly all of the above, and wind and solar will be part of that matrix. But wind is intermittent. The sun doesn't always shine. We have not developed the technology to hold large amounts of power, large quantities, to provide the power that's needed for manufacturing or hospitals or small cities when it's dark or when the wind isn't blowing. And so, I like to focus on the actual things that work to provide that 24/7 baseload power. That's nuclear power, that's hydropower, that's fossil fuel generated power. Now, whether that's natural gas or whether that's diesel fuel or coal, all that's in the matrix now. We have an abundance of natural gas in this country. We're finding more and more every day. And, we convert these old power plants to natural gas and use that natural gas that we have here. We would still have plenty to export to other countries to help their quality of life.
And the reason we have that abundance is because only about 8% now of our energy production domestically is wind and solar. It is part of the equation, but it can't be all the equation, and that's what we're saying is kind of the absurdity.
It is in the Green New Deal, though.
Yeah,
it's 100% of the
That's
equation.
right.
It just doesn't work.
Exactly.
So what are some aspects of the Green New Deal that have nothing to do with the environment? I think there are a lot of people out there that think this is, strictly about enforcing, good environmental policy, and they don't realize it stretches far beyond that. What are some of those things that it latches onto?
Let me give you some of these highlights because this is so important. First of all, single-payer health care is a big promise. Part of the Green New Deal, of course, has nothing to do with energy production. It's just one of the radical left's great dreams. So they thought I'd throw that in here for good measure, I guess.
It's a New Deal aspect.
That's right. The employment guarantee, it said, even for those who may not want to work. We love that little aspect of it. College for all and family and medical leave, of course, and high-speed rail. All the dream promises of the radical left, which of course are unaffordable. Let's not forget we have a nearly $23 trillion federal debt right now. This is not the time.
93 trillion to is what this Green New Deal.
Well, but you know what? If we just subscribe to modern monetary theory, like some of our Democrat colleagues, it would be no problem because then debt's irrelevant. You don't have to worry about inflation. There's
I think
no
you
such.
can just print money. And
Yeah,
pay
we just
for
keep
it,
printing money,
I think
Jeff.
that's been tried places before, and
I
it's
think so.
caused a lot of problems.
Didn't
but,
end well. And by the way, the basis of all this is Marxist ideas. Socialism, communism have been responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of people, innocent people, in the 20th century. And
they
really,
don't
that's
talk about that.
No,
they
they don't.
talk about the deaths at the hands of Stalin or Lenin or others, and you know, socialism, communism has never worked, and the Green New Deal won't work. You know, Medicare for all, single-payer health care, free college. You know, all that sounds good, but somebody's got to pay for it. And as a father of 3 children, boys now 24, 21, and 18, they're going to pay for this national debt that we currently have. And if this is implemented, they're going to be under the yoke of taxation their whole lives, their kids' lives, and their great-grandkids' lives because it's such an astonishing number.
What would you say to someone who thinks, well, if we don't pass the Green New Deal or something like it, we're just going to destroy our environment completely?
I would give them this number. Listen, if we actually implemented, let's say it was possible to do what AOC and the others have said, okay? If we were able to do this, the total temperature reduction by the year 2100 is estimated to be 0.137% or degrees Celsius. 0.137, okay, by the year 2100. So a negligible amount. Even if all this were possible, it wouldn't actually do any good at all. And that's the kind of the crazy thing about this. Look, we need to be good stewards of our planet, and we all believe that. It's one of our fundamental beliefs. But we do this through private sector innovation and these other mechanisms. It's not by the government forcing people to do these radical things. We need education. We need to talk openly about this. And I think you'll see conservatives in Congress coming forward in the next several weeks and months with some very affirmative policies and legislative proposals to be good stewards of the earth and take care of this problem. But it's not with this fanciful socialism dream that they proposed. It's got to be realistic policies that we can actually pass and implement.
You had mentioned this briefly earlier, but I think the price tag for the Green New Deal, it's between 51 trillion and 93 trillion about over 10 years. How would this impact lower income families? Can you take us through people who are watching what this impact personally is going to have for them?
Well, we've, in our 13-page takedown, as it's been called, we've done crunched some numbers and shown what that would mean to the average American family, and particularly low-income households would be affected adversely more than in most others. If you're going to generate $9 trillion per year that would be necessary to do this, the taxation goes up. Not only that, on an individual basis, but the cost of goods and services goes up as well because the production cost for those things goes up. So everything rises. That has a disparate income on persons who take home less pay because they're spending more of their hard-earned resources on those basic services. So it's been estimated, and we have some of this, that 24% of low-income families, they would have to make changes to cope with this. 24% would go without food for a day. 37% would delay receiving medical attention. 34% would miss filling medications, and 23% would keep home temperatures at an unhealthy range. This is the adjustments that the American people would have to make to pursue this fanciful socialism dream that actually would do nothing for the environment at the end of the day. That's what's so crazy about it.
Yeah, Mike's full of facts and all of it's great, but you go back to 2008, 2009 when gasoline prices $4 a gallon for diesel fuel or higher, and that was South Carolina prices. The average family knows when gasoline or transportation fuels go up, what it means to their pocketbook. That means less money to take the family out to eat. That's less money to tithe at the church. That's less money to contribute to, you know, the United Way or whatnot. That's less money to spend at the grocery stores. And so when diesel fuel is from $3 to $4 a gallon, $1 a gallon difference, an average 18-wheeler has a 300-gallon tank. So he just increased $300 his cost for that fuel. And so that is passed on to the consumer. The consumer's me, consumer's Mike, consumer's you that are going to the grocery store and buying food that's transported by the 18-wheelers. They're going to buy the TVs and going to buy the other things that we need to make our lives better. And when we have less money in our pocket, then we don't buy those things. And that's how it really translates down. You add the electrical cost on that. When utility rates go up, which they will under the Green New Deal, even the families that don't have vehicles are still paying a higher percentage of their discretionary income for power, for their utility bill. That's less money they have to spend on other things. Maybe the school books that the kids need, or maybe other things just to make their life better. So it gets down to the lower income folks. It's a much broader percentage, and they feel it at home in their pocketbooks.
And the point is that the financial struggles that families had to make during the 2008 recession era, that is nothing compared to what we would be facing with the implementation of the Green New Deal. That was just a small taste of what we would see if this thing became the law.
Yeah.
It's sobering. Congressman Duncan is co-chair of the House Energy Action Team. You're working on conservative policy solutions for energy all the time. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're working on, any projects in their legislation that you want to highlight?
So the first thing we're going to do is really do a lot of messaging, allow our members that have different interest in different energy areas, whether it's nuclear power or whether they're, Mark Wayne Mullen has both fossil fuel generation and wind and solar in the state of Oklahoma. Create opportunities for them, whether it's op-eds or whether that's floor time during special order hours, to push back against this. And we're going to work with RSC because it's a glove in hand fit with the conservatives there in RSC to come to the floor, have a chance to message against AOC and against this Green New Deal, against these bad socialist policies. But also it comes down to educating the American people why the Green New Deal is bad for our nation, why it's bad for them individually, and also start talking about what is the Republican alternative then. Yeah, sure, we can talk about wind and solar being a part of the energy metrics, but let's talk about what works. How does that power get to your home? And then talk about maybe transmission issues and grid threats like EMPs or grid failures, cyber attacks. All that plays into should play into our discussion about energy here in America. And as Mike said, energy dominance, being an export nation of crude oil and natural gas, is not talked about enough by Republicans. We're not just meeting our domestic needs now. We have a surplus, and we're able to send it to other places around the globe to improve the lives of people in poverty right now in Africa or third world countries, wherever. Those are things that we should talk about from a Republican standpoint that are positive that the average person gets. And when they see Republicans actually have a plan to improve the lives of others around the globe, that's a winning message for us.
President Trump, he's been very vocal about advancing policies to promote clean air, clean water, good environmental policy. How would you rate him so far?
Look, I think by all accounts, if you look at any objective measure, the Trump presidency has been wildly successful with the American people. I mean, when he ran in 2016, he told us we would be tired of winning. We're not tired yet, but there's been a lot of victories for the American people. And I think that most people recognize that. As much as the radical left hates his style and hates the way he uses his Twitter account and whatever other gripe they have, they cannot refute the results of these conservative policies that we've helped to implement, the tax reform, the regulatory reform. The president is fulfilling his promises, and the results for the American people have been very, very good. We have the lowest unemployment numbers in the modern era.
Across all demographics.
Across all demographics.
Yeah.
The stock market is soaring. People are doing well, and that's at every level of the economic ladder. Eventually and ultimately what we're aiming for is more economic mobility for more people. That's how you widen the pathway out of poverty for more people, not by government intervention and heavy-handed regulation, but by freeing up the free market so that more people can really pursue that American dream. That's what we believe in. That's what the president believes in.
Absolutely.
And I think these policies are helping to achieve that.
And I think he's putting forth more constitutional government ideals, where he's looking at national defense, whether it's securing our southern border against the threats that may come across there, or challenging our allies to pay more of their fair share for mutual defense agreements, or challenging our adversaries. And we're a strong country, we're a superpower again, and I think the world needs America to be strong economically and strong militarily to keep the world safe.
Well, in the coming weeks, the Trump administration has said it's going to release the Affordable Clean Energy Rule, which will replace the Obama administration's Clean Power Plan. What would you say is the biggest difference between these two administrations and how they approach these energy issues?
Yeah, I mean, so the Obama administration was all about big government. You know, government is the solution. And Ronald Reagan said government isn't the solution to the problems we face in America. Government is the problem, and in many instances it is. I think Trump gets that. He's a limited government person. He understands the role of government, though, trade policy, national defense, and those are the things he's worked on, all the while bringing his business sense to the economy and understanding tax reform, allowing us as individuals, but also American businesses, to have more of their hard-earned money, to keep more of their hard-earned money, to invest more of their hard-earned money, repatriate those overseas earnings. We're seeing that effect on the economy right now. And so those are the differences. A limited government, more constitutional government-minded president versus a big government progressive that Obama was.
And Ronald Reagan also said that we're the last best hope of man on the earth, and a strong America is good not only for Americans, but it's good for the entire world, because we are the ones in so many cases that are standing between tyranny and liberty. We're the defenders of liberty. And I think it was Reagan used to quote, I think it was Pope Pius XII, and he said, the leadership of the free world was thrust upon the American people at that little hall in Philadelphia 2 centuries ago. Here we are almost 2.5 centuries into this great experiment in self-governance. We can only maintain the republic, though, if we are true to these basic principles that we are founded upon. I think the president gets that, and I think he's trying every day to do his best to keep us true to those ideals. If we lose them, if we trade them in for some socialist dream, then that last best hope of man is gone from the earth. And that's what's at stake, nothing less than that. And we take that very seriously every day.
And I think going into 2020, if we remember that we should carry a banner of no pale pastels, but one of bold colors, which make it unmistakably clear where we stand on the issues. You know, Republicans have to be bold. We have to be bold as we push back against AOC and the Green New Deal. Be bold with our own plans, that American energy works. It makes your lives better. It gives us a chance to export that energy. Be bold about that. Understand tax reform has actually gotten this economy going. Stand for tax reform. Understand that your constituents, you know, actually are benefiting from having more money in their pocket. We all know people, whether it's family members or people in our Sunday school class that didn't have jobs 2 years ago that are now employed. And that just makes America work much better.
Well, Congressman Duncan, Congressman Johnson, thank you so much for being with us today. How can people follow your work as they're watching what you guys are doing in Congress?
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks for having us. You can follow the Republican Study Committee, Google it, that's what I tell everybody, but we'll put the website at the bottom of the screen so everybody can log on and follow it. You can also access this 13-page detailed takedown of the Green New Deal and our graphics pages that make it easy to explain it to your friends at work and to your children at home. Everybody needs to be conversant in this. It's going to be a big dialogue, a big part of the debate going forward in the months ahead, especially as we come into the election cycle. So now's a good time to do a little homework and know what those numbers are, and we want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and watch the House Energy Action Team as we partner with RSC to bring people to the floor, give op-ed opportunities, educate the American people. That's what we're going to do first and foremost.
Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Rachel.